I want to have a look at the book of Nahum. It's a short book. It's one of 12 short books called the minor prophets in the Old Testament. Prophets like Jeremiah and Isaiah. They're massive books. These are little ones. Nahum lives in a time when Assyria is the dominant empire. One of the things that the Assyrians have done recently is destroyed Thebes in Egypt. They've taken over from Egypt. Their capital is Nineveh. One of the other minor prophets, Jonah, 200 years before, had been sent by God and eventually arrived, and he preached to the Ninevites, and they repented of their ways, of their cruelty and their idolatry. But 200 years on, it's back, and as bad as it was, they are not easy conquerors to live with their oppression and their ways. So God is calling time on Assyria, and he does it through Nahum's words. The name Nahum means comfort. In those troubled times of occupation, he sends them a prophet called Comfort. It may not have chimed with what they were feeling, what they were experiencing, and their, lack of hope. And yet God sends comfort to remind them of who he is, that he's outside of time, and he is faithful. That's always a good message to hear, because it doesn't age. It applies afresh in different circumstances. So I'm going to read it in the Message version, just because, again, like with 1 John, it gives it a freshness, and it makes you think about what God is like and what he's saying. By all means, go and read it in a more traditional version as well. This is the first bit of chapter 1, and you will hear God talking about his power, about his majesty. You will also hear God talking about his grace, and he reveals the different aspects of his character. He's not afraid to be known. He's not afraid to be part of the everyday life of his people and the political and economic life of his people. But as we've seen over these past few weeks, they're ambassadors. They need to be shaped so they can reflect this amazing character of God to the nations. Nahum, most of chapter 1, listen and enjoy. A report on the problem of Nineveh, the way God gave Nahum of Elkosh to see it. God is serious business. He won't be trifled with. He avenges his foes. He stands up against his enemies, fierce and raging. But God doesn't lose his temper. He's powerful, but it's patient power. Still, no one gets by with anything. Sooner or later, everyone pays. Tornadoes and hurricanes are the wake of his passage. Storm clouds are the dust he shakes off his feet. He yells at the sea. It dries up. All the rivers run dry. The Bashan and Carmel mountains shrivel. The Lebanon orchards shrivel. Mountains quake in their roots. Hills dissolve into mudflats. Earth shakes in fear of God. The whole world's in a panic. Who can face such towering anger? Who can stand up to this fierce rage? His anger spills out like a river of lava. His fury shatters boulders. God is good, a hiding place in tough times. He recognises and welcomes anyone looking for help, no matter how desperate the trouble. But cosy islands of escape he wipes right off the map. No one gets away from God. Why waste time conniving against God? He's putting an end to all such scheming. For troublemakers, no second chances. Like a pile of dry brush soaked in oil, they'll go up in flames.